Hello everybody. Okay, it's time to look at the chart of Rishi Sunak. If you haven't watched this channel before, I've already looked at Liz Truss, Penny Mordaunt, and I've done quite a few other vlogs regarding the Tory leadership candidacy and the little tussle that's going on to seize power after Johnson has been effectively Brutusized. In other words, Brutus stabbed in the back. If you haven't watched this channel before, I don't usually do introductions. I like to get right to the point. I pack it with information. I don't mess around, and I'm about as close to the bone as you can go on YouTube. For the record, I have no stake in this leadership battle. I think all of the Tories, as well as Labour, the Lib Dems, they all shawled for the World Economic Forum. My trust in politics has diminished to a great deal. But I still want to look at it because it still is fairly interesting, because it's a theatre that's going on, and it's helpful to know kind of the personalities at play. The question mark is, will it matter? I mean, for all intents and purposes, Boris hasn't gone anywhere yet. Should a major crisis unfold before the new leader is installed, there'll be every reason to say, oh, well, Boris just better carry on for the sake of national unity. I also will say from the outset that all these contenders must be dumb. Okay, and the reason I say they must be dumb is this is about the most poisoned chalice you could wish to take on. You'd have to be really unaware or know that you were feathering your own nest to a golden diamond-encrusted nest that you would be feathering, because no one's going to be popular of these leaders if they get in. Such is this magnitude of disaster we are heading for when the winter comes, the fuel crisis, Ukraine, etc., etc. I'd just like to say about these debates, I find them a total waste of time, because on the big issues, the most important issues, the earth moving fundamental issues that are going to change all of our lives no matter what our political persuasions, they're all the same. They're all behind net zero. They are all behind the war against Ukraine, or should we say the proxy war against Russia, which could become a hot war against Russia. They all super enthusiastic about that. They are also all, no one ever asks them from the press what their stance is on the World Economic Forum, on Klaus Schwab, how close they tied into international banking, how closely are they following the World Economic Forum Davos agenda. You'll never hear them ask that. And on the subject of mass immigration, well, they've also got nothing to say. They're all exactly the same. So here we go. What is the point? And the other important and vital questions that never get asked of these candidates are, where you stand on further lockdowns? Where do you stand on mandatory vaccines? Do you have any opinion on Bill Gates and how much he controls of the World Health Organization, and how we are now basically giving our sovereignty in health matters over to the World Health Organization, which is controlled by Gates? They'll never be asked that question, you can be sure. And, they'll never be asked what their ideas are for the abolishment of the Coronavirus Act, which, as you know, is an egregious seizure of human rights. So what is the point of these debates? They'll talk about kind of tax cuts, this and that, which is kind of vague. It might never happen. It'll be fudged. Really, it's going to make no difference in the scheme of things, is it? So it's absolutely pointless. They all very, Liz Truss, very wooden, Penny Mordaunt, totally uninspired. George Galloway is convinced that it'll be Penny Mordaunt versus Rishi Sunak, and that Mordaunt will win because he says when it gets to the final two, which is, he says this, but this is, correct. When it gets to the final two, it's up to the Tory party members to decide, and he says they're mainly old white men who went to boarding schools, and they're kind of like the matronly Penny Mordaunt kind of carry-on matron figure. And they'll vote for her. Okay, that's what he says. I've always said it's going to be down between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, and they'll basically go for Liz Truss as the lesser of the evils because the Tory membership aren't that keen on Rishi Sunak. There you go. So that's my little runner-up commentary. This is Rishi's chart, okay? He's born the 12th of May, 1980, and we do not have his, he's the same age as Kemi. They're both 42. So we don't have his time of birth, because you never do with these figures, which does take a lot away from it. But what I'm interested in here is Moon in Aries, and it appears to be opposite Pluto. This is set for midday, so even if he was born sort of later, it would still be Moon opposite Pluto. If he's born maybe evening, that's going off and that's waning a lot. But this says to me incredible desire. Moon in Aries love to get their own way, right? They're extremely impatient, and there's so much impatience in this chart because we also have Mars conjunct Jupiter in Virgo, very, very impatient, and Sun conjunct Mercury, which although in Taurus it's more of a patient sign, overall this is an incredibly impatient chart. He wants it now. There's a heavy level of desire to just this moon opposite Pluto shows an intense ambition, a burning fire inside, a sense of entitlement as well, because often moon in Aries feel that they are entitled, they are the best, they deserve the best in life, and they are damn well going to grab it. This is kind of a grab and take placement, right? It's very uncompromising, it never backs down, it's quite feisty, quite selfish, can be quite ruthless. So we see here an incredibly determined, ambitious, power-hungry streak. And I see a lot of control freakery in this chart. Sometimes Taurus can be quite controlling, and also because he's got Mars in Virgo conjunct Jupiter, I see a controlling technocrat, right? Now, if you have a look, and we'll have a look at an article just now, he's well tied into the whole technocracy. And I think he's been key to developing products which would enable a digital currency along with a Chinese social credit score in the UK. So he's very much into a technocrat, which I think is reflected in the chart. However, he's also the pragmatist. Here, Sun conjunct Mercury in Taurus, we've got the banking background, which I have covered a lot, so I'm not going to talk about Theleme and banking and the Fulbright Scholarship. I've covered that. That does show a great acumen in terms of finances, money, like I say, business acumen, and a lot of pragmatism. And because he's got these Virgo placements and also Saturn in Virgo, he's definitely a person who's very hands-on. He can get things done. He thinks things through. He's quite bright, and there's a sort of a cautious side to him as well. So this does reflect someone who is thoughtful, and there's a lot going on, and so everything's very carefully planned, everything's extremely diplomatic and manicured as well. We're looking here at a very finished product. He's got a lot of finesse, he's got the Tony Blair about him because he's got a bit of the salesman. He knows how to look good, he understands image and image consciousness, and he's quite a perfectionist, and he wants to get things right. So there's this great facade of calm, caution, conservatism, but underneath there's a raging, ambitious fire, and that side of him is very impulsive and also can be very lack objectivity, because the desire level is high, and when his emotions get the better of him, he'll basically jump either way, and he's very easily manipulated once he becomes in a heightened state of emotion and he gets excited. And he's one of those people, if he really wants something, he'll bite, like a hungry shark biting at something. And sometimes all this kind of caution and forethought goes out the window, because remember, Virgo is also a very impatient placement. We've got Venus on 29 degrees of Gemini, right? 29 degrees is vacillation, and so is Gemini. Venus, representing his priorities and his values, show a great deal of he's here and he's there. There's two sides of the coin going on here. I feel that there is a lack of real understanding of who he is, and what his values are, and these can shift according to what his ambitions are. Or there's a highly flexible identity going on here. Okay, we've also talking about the impatience. We've got Mercury opposite Uranus in Scorpio. Again, that heightened level of impatience, feistiness, impetuousness, and also shows the ability to think quite quickly, a good mentality, a good communicator, quite strong powers of lateral thinking, joining the dots, putting things together, which makes him a lot more competent character than the others. And because he's just got that heightened level of intellectual stuff going on and the ability to deal with concepts, understand concepts. So he is much more of a thinker. Okay, there wasn't very much more in this chart I wanted to cover, except to say in September, when it'll be decided between the two, because it'll take time for them to send out all the ballots to the Tory parties. In September, we've got Saturn. I don't have it on this chart. I think that's the American chart. I'll just go back and see if I had his, yes, I do. You can see Uranus is moving to conjunct Mercury. This is in September when the results come out of the runoff. And Saturn is exactly squaring the Sun Mercury conjunction. Now, the fact that Saturn's squaring it says some disappointment. The fact Uranus is close there shows an absolute frenzy and hubbub of activity trying to win this. He's going all out, so he'll be running his legs off trying to win it. Right. But Saturn shows to me some disappointment there. Although Saturn square Sun, depending on what the timing was, needn't necessarily mean that. Neptune is not particularly active. Sun is conjunct Mars at that time, showing that he's really crossing the I's, dotting the T's, and doing his very best. And I don't think Pluto was doing much either. Pluto at the end of Capricorn. Yeah, well, Pluto is roughly squaring his moon, depending if he's born a bit later on. Transiting Pluto would be squaring his moon, making him bringing out this moon opposite Pluto streak and this incredible, ruthless desire, full determination, wanting, hungry for power. There's a great hunger here. He really needs and wants this. This is ticking all his boxes, this politics thing. So, but, you know, kind of because Pluto is opposite, and by natally moon is opposite Pluto, that's not lucky because it's triggering a malefic aspect, right, and by birth. And of course Saturn square Sun is also kind of not very helpful. That's why I don't think it would be him. Look, we can't say categorically because we don't have the time, but the time of birth. But that's what I'm thinking there. Okay, I thought I would just crack on to something else if I just pause here. Okay, this is the article that I wanted to go to from the National Pulse, which, as you can see, no, I don't want that. Would-be British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's family run a China-linked World Economic Forum partner company pushing digital ID and social credit scores. Now, this is quite an interesting read. My hair's up because, you know, it's so hot here. So I was meaning to say that Xi Jinping is endorsing Rishi Sunak. He said he is the candidate he'd like to work with, so that says it all. So in this article, it tells us that the former finance minister, Rishi Sunak, who's one of the frontrunners we know, has family ties to a technology partner of the World Economic Forum. That's Infosys, his father-in-law's company, right? So his father-in-law was the founder of Infosys, an Indian information tech company, provides services to numerous Fortune 500 companies, and one of the company's leading services is Finacle, a digital banking platform, right? So Murty, that's his wife, remains a foreign citizen, a non-dom, with non-UK tax-paying status, despite her husband working as, you know, top person in the government and wanting to be the prime minister, but they're not keen on paying that much tax, no way. But Infosys, of course, with whom his wife has large investments, right, is an official partner of the World Economic Forum, and it's been accused of seeking to develop the technological infrastructure to implement a global social credit score. So the future possible British Prime Minister is married to someone, or obviously he probably has shares in Infosys as well, we don't know, but he's inextricably linked to people who are developing, a company who is developing the powerhouse technologically of a global Chinese-style social credit score, which we all know is coming, right? Despite what Gates says about not being interested in following us around, blah, blah, blah. Social credit scores are, of course, extremely authoritarian. They can deny you rights, restrict your movements, and make sure that you toe the line like a really good sheep. Infosys has had praise from the World Economic Forum, being dubbed a global leader in next-generation digital services and consulting. Isn't that reassuring, guys? Absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? Okay, guys, let's have a look at just what else this article says, because there are a couple of interesting things. Let's hold on here. Whoops. Okay. Sorry for all those disruptions. Without any further ado, I just wanted to say that Rishi Sunak was quoted. It was during the COVID years, it was 2020 or 2021, and he said something along the lines of, if we don't know who and where you are, we can't help you. Sort of indicating that the government is here to support and help you, but if you're not on their radar, well, what can they do? And it's this kind of dragnet trying to get everyone into their systems under the guise of, well, we're going to give you some loans to help you out, or we're going to put you on universal credit. We want to help you, so we need to know about you, right? Well, it reminds me of what Reagan said, and he said the worst words along the lines of, the worst thing you can hear is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. No one from the government is there to help you. They're there to control and enslave you. Let's look at this. It says Infosys is also a member of the World Economic Forum's Partnering Against Corruption. Will they be looking into George Soros at all? What goes on with Biden and Ukraine, that sort of corruption? Of course they're not. They're interested in really small-scale corruption, which they probably invent. And that includes across industry representatives from the world's largest corporations. You see, it's all about the world's largest corporations. It's the stakeholder society, and they're important, and you're really not. Then it says the National Pulse recently exposed how the initiative, which purports to fight for transparency in business practices, is the former CEO of Rothschild Reuters, who now serves as a board member at COVID-19 vaccine maker Pfizer. Yeah. Oh dear, I scratch your back. It's an incestuous little cabal, isn't it? Its leaders are also involved with different World Economic Forum subgroups, such as the Global Head of Sustainability. It's one of their key words, it's always sustainability, diversity, resilience, equality, and design consulting services Corey Glickman, who is a member of the World Economic Forum Pioneer Cities Working Group. I suppose that's to do with the whole Global Cities initiative, right? Sunak himself has a history of being soft on China, telling The Telegraph that he wanted a complete sea change in relations with the Chinese Communist Party in favor of increased trade ties and economic collaboration. I would say capitulation, right? So these are our wonderful candidates. That is the story. Hope you enjoyed that on Rishi Sunak. I did have something else to say briefly, but I don't know if it's that interesting. I'll just hop over and see if everything's behaving on my pages. Yes, it was this little thing. Now, this is more of a kind of a meme article. I did put it on my Getter, which is where I found it. I'll share it with you. It's allegedly, I will say allegedly because I haven't totally fact-checked this, right? Comes to light that Rishi Sunak's wife was part owner of Lava Mayfair Club, a private membership gym, which collapsed that was during COVID, owing almost 44 million to creditors, including 374,000 to the Revenue and Customs. Another of Mrs. Sunak's ventures, which is called Mrs. Wordsmith, an education business, must have had foresight that people would be schooling from home, went into administration last year, owing 16.3 million, after getting a 1.3 million loan from the government's Future Fund, and it gets worse. Digme Fitness, of which she owns 100%, received up to £635,000 of furlough money before it then closed its 8 studios in London and Oxford, still owing the Revenue £415,000. So Mr. Sunak introduces the furlough scheme, and the woman he's sleeping with benefits by up to £635,000, which is still peanuts to her. I mean, it's billionaire we're talking about. So Mr. Sunak also oversees the rules regarding non-dom status, and the woman he's sleeping with, his wife, benefits by over £20 million, which is no longer peanuts, really. So he's in charge of ensuring that the UK maximises its tax revenue, yet personally in his own family circle, his wife has owned companies going bust, which owe a staggering £780,000 to the taxman. It's interesting. These people all disgust me. Let's see what happens in the leadership race next, guys. I should think Femi will be eliminated tonight. And, it won't be long before Penny Mordaunt goes the same way, in my opinion.